What up, Bucs fans, NFL fans, and gambling fans? Welcome to week 14 of Pewter Picks and Props, brought to you by PewterReport.com. I'm your host, Matt Matera. We're going to break down Bucs versus Raiders in a gambling aspect, of course, go around the NFL, and also talk about college football as it is conference championship week, and I am scorching hot in college football. If you followed my picks last week, I believe I went undefeated and won a lot of games in the NFL as well. We'll get the player props for the Bucs game too. I know that's why a lot of you are watching this show. So thanks everybody for tuning in. Let's get right into it. Conference championship week is one of the funnest weeks in college football because you're guaranteed good matchups, and there's a lot of good ones in this one. So typically I've done 3 college football games, but I'm doing 4 this week because of the nature of the matchups. Starting off with the Big 12 matchup, Iowa State and Arizona State, taking the over 49.5. I was expecting this to be in the 50s, maybe mid 50s, but the fact that it's at 49.5, I see one of these teams reaching the 30-point threshold. I think it'll be back and forth for a majority of the game. Shout out to Rocco Beck, what he's been doing. Arizona State putting up a lot of points and, winning a lot of games, obviously, to get to this point. So expect a shootout in this one with the over of 49.5. Probably the most watched game. The stakes are not as high as some of the other games, the next one I'm talking about, because both are going into the college football playoff, but there is a bye at stake, and it's a rematch of a game that went on earlier in the season, Texas against Georgia. I'm going with the Longhorns minus 2.5. This is a neutral site game, and actually kind of favors Georgia because the SEC championship game takes place in Atlanta, where the Falcons play. Georgia got the better of Texas last time, but since then, everyone just kind of thinks Georgia is fantastic and unstoppable, and they've sucked in a lot of games. They should not have beaten Georgia Tech, which I took plus 17, by the way, maybe 17.5. But regardless, they should not have beaten Georgia Tech. Carson Beck has regressed as a quarterback, and Texas, I think, is going to learn from the mistakes that they had against Georgia. It's the one loss they've had on the season. I don't care if it's Quinn Ewers. I don't care if it's Arch Manning. Texas, in a weird way, it's kind of a get-right game just based on the quality of the opponent, and they want to make sure they have a bye as well. So Texas minus 2.5 is a pretty low line. I think they'll end up winning. The ACC championship, SMU and Clemson, taking SMU minus 1.5. I think this will be a game where Clemson's defense is pretty good, but I don't know how much their offense can match with SMU. Clemson does have a chance to kind of play spoiler and obviously get into the college football playoff with a win by winning the ACC championship game, but they won't be in unless they do win. Clemson couldn't beat South Carolina last week. SMU joins the ACC this year, has made some noise. I think they'll continue to do it and kind of overmatch Clemson in this matchup. In the last college football game, the Big Ten championship, a little bit of surprise that Penn State is playing against Oregon. That's because Michigan beat Ohio State, which knocked Ohio State out of this game. I think it'll be a slugfest, or that Penn State won't be able to score. They won't be able to go touchdown for touchdown with Oregon. And the Ducks have kind of slugged out some games. It hasn't always been finesse and high flying as we've seen from previous Oregon teams. This is a new iteration of this group. So I can kind of see Oregon just kind of bludgeoning Penn State to death. Or if Penn State ends up somehow winning the Big Ten championship game, and this is another matchup where both teams are going to the playoffs regardless. If Penn State wins, they're not going to win it, 35-25 or something like that. They're going to win it in a slugfest that's like 20-17 or something of that nature. So either Oregon pulls away by a lot and Penn State just, can't stay in pursuit, or Penn State keeps it close and you got to drag it out until the end. Either way, this game's going to be one with defense and some timely scoring. So I'll take the under in this matchup. Moving on to the NFL. We got 3 NFL games, and of course, we'll get to the Bucs, the over-under in the game, some prop bets, and a touchdown prop as well. So we're going to start with a very important game for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Falcons at the Vikings. I actually kind of like the Falcons. Maybe not to win, But Atlanta has been so bad over the last 3 games. They've lost 3 in a row. Kirk Cousins has been terrible. But remember, this is a not a spite game necessarily, but a revenge game a little bit. Kirk Cousins facing his former team, his most recent former team, the Vikings in Minnesota. The Vikings barely got past the Cardinals. They scored a late touchdown. Sam Darnold's been a little up and down. Their defense obviously is great, but the Falcons are desperate. And there's that old saying, hungry dogs run faster. They know that the Bucs are chomping at the bit to take over the NFC South. The Bucs have played better. Obviously, they've had worse opponents. And the Falcons are hanging on for dear life. They need to win this game badly. So I think we'll get a much better performance from the Falcons than what we've seen over the last 3 weeks, because they have no margin for error at all. This game is going to be decided by a field goal. Whichever way it ends up landing, it's a cover for the Falcons at plus 5.5. I'm actually very NFC South heavy this week. This team just went toe-to-toe with the Bucs, losing in overtime. They went toe-to-toe with the Chiefs, losing in a close game. Call me crazy, but Panthers plus 13 at the Eagles. Philadelphia has been fantastic. They just beat the Ravens. They've been on a great winning streak. Saquon Barkley is in the MVP conversation. But 2 touchdowns is a lot for any team in the NFL. And as good as the Eagles defense has been, I've been pretty impressed with what the Carolina Panthers have been able to do, and specifically Bryce Young. So this may be a game. Actually, what I think is going to happen is the Panthers are going to get a backdoor cover. The Panthers are getting a backdoor cover where they may be down 18 points late in the fourth quarter, and they score a garbage time touchdown to cover and, collect your winnings if you bet on the Panthers. So the high number, I know this hurt for people that bet on the Jaguars a couple of weeks ago when they were about 13 or 14 point underdogs against the Lions, and the Lions ended up scoring over 50 points. I don't necessarily think that'll be the case with the Eagles. They're due for a little bit of a setback, not losing this game outright, but maybe not playing up to their potential. So I'll take the Panthers at 13 points. That's a high number in the NFL. You don't see that too much. So Panthers plus 13. This next one taking place in Miami. Dolphins minus 5.5 over the Jets. This has everything to do with how freaking bad the Jets are. They're a terrible team. Their offense is very inconsistent. Their defense doesn't like to tackle. They've kind of quit on the season. The Dolphins, they suck in the cold weather. We all saw what they did against the Packers, which was basically nothing. But when they're home, when they're in Miami, that offense gets rolling. It gets flowing. Tua's been back for a little bit and has looked pretty good since his return. Tyreek Hill is still Tyreek Hill. Waddle's great. A-Chain, the running back, is really good. So this could be another blowout game. The Jets have kept it close at home against some teams, but the Dolphins just have a high-flying offense, and the Jets can't stick with them. So Dolphins minus 5.5 over the lowly New York Football Jets. All right. Now, Bucs versus Raiders. The reason why many of you have come to this show. We'll do the spread in the game, which is minus 6.5 in favor of the Bucs, and the over-under, which is 46. I'm taking the Bucs minus 6.5 and the over of 46. So, first of all, the Raiders against the spread, I believe, are like 1-10 this year, or whatever that comes out to. They do not cover a lot. And the fact that this is less than a touchdown and an extra point is a little surprising to me, given that the Raiders are a 2-win team. Maybe Vegas, the casinos, not Vegas, the Las Vegas Raiders, are looking into the fact that they kept it so close against the Chiefs. But I think it says a little bit more about the Chiefs than it does the Raiders. The over, the Bucs have hit the over 8 times this season. They're 8-4. They hit the over last week as well. And for them to cover, while they didn't cover against the Panthers, let's remember, Baker Mayfield had a terrible game at quarterback. He had 2 turnovers. The Bucs, I think, definitely cover that spread if Baker even plays average, but he was awful. I don't expect that to happen again from Baker Mayfield. So as long as they stop Max Crosby, Baker's going to have a pretty good game. And defensively, I don't think it's going to be great for the Bucs. They have to stop Brock Bowers, but outside of that, the Bucs will score enough to pull away from the Raiders. They are a two-win team for a reason. So Bucs minus 6.5, the over for sure of 46 because both teams will be able to score. And that's why moving over to the player props. First one I like is Aiden O'Connell over 229.5 passing yards. He's not a good quarterback, but I think he's fairly average for when he's played last year and obviously looked pretty good against the Chiefs last week. While he's average, the Bucs pass defense is terrible. It's horrible. It's awful. They allowed the Panthers to come back late in the game last week. They've made a lot of bad quarterbacks look pretty good. They've made great quarterbacks look Hall of Fame worthy. And many of them are Hall of Fame worthy with Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes. So Aiden O'Connell will slice apart that soft zone as the Bucs continue to play over and over and over again. I don't see Todd Bowles changing up his defense. You have an injury now with Mike Edwards, a little bit of a mix-up in the secondary. They do get Tyke Smith back, but I don't think that changes anything. So Aiden O'Connell over 229.5 passing yards, and a lot of those passing yards are going to be going to Brock Bowers, who will have over 71.5 receiving yards. Bucs have been terrible stopping the pass. They've been even worse defending tight ends. They've made Kyle Pitts look fantastic. Travis Kelce has had one of his best games against the Bucs. Mark Andrews destroyed them. Tommy Tremble last week against the Panthers. Juwan Johnson on the Saints did really well. So it really doesn't matter who the tight end is. They just ball out against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It happens time and time again. Kittle on the 49ers obviously looked really good. So doesn't matter who the tight end is. The Bucs just can't guard him. And Brock Bowers, if you take out Jaden Daniels and Bo Nix, the quarterbacks, it's Brock Bowers and Bucky Irving for offensive rookie of the year. So Brock Bowers over 71.5. Speaking of Bucky Irving, if his hip is healthy, he will rush for over 69.5 rushing yards. So I'm taking the over there. I don't think he'll get 25 attempts, but anytime Bucky has had at least 14 attempts or more, he's gotten at least 70 yards. So that's the formula I'm going with for Bucky Irving over 69.5 rushing yards. This next one pains me a lot, but I'm going to take Mike Evans under 70.5 receiving yards. I know he's got the 1,000 receiving yards in a season record that he wants to extend and continue. But I see this a little bit more like how the Bucs beat the Giants, where Mike was a factor. He was very important, but he got around the 68 yards or whatever it was, and it was a blowout, and they didn't need Mike Evans, so they wanted to keep him healthy because, remember, he's coming back from that hamstring and knee injury. I see it kind of similar to that, where the Bucs get a lead, they'll just lean on the running game and preserve Mike Evans for the long haul. Mike is more concerned about winning than he is the record. So unfortunately, and I hope I'm wrong with this, like if all the other ones hit and this one doesn't, I'll be very happy. But unfortunately, I think Mike Evans is not going to hit over 70.5 receiving yards. It's going to be under. So those are my player props. Last one is the touchdown prop, which hit last week. Thank you to Mike Evans. We'll try to make it 2 in a row. This guy, his production has slowed down a little bit with the return of Mike Evans, but he's still a red zone threat. And the Bucs have ran it a lot. I think they'll mix it up and get some more passing touchdowns for Baker Mayfield in this game. Cade Otton. Let's not forget about how important Cade Otton has been to this team. I'll take an anytime touchdown for Cade. It's at plus 150, so a really good payout there. Cade is the second most important receiving target for this Bucs team. After Mike Evans, excluding the running backs, just between receivers and tight ends, it's Cade Otton. So I think they find him in the red zone, and he gets a score. So those are all of my picks between college, the NFL, and the Bucs game specifically. I got some momentum based on what went on last week, and we hope to continue it. So if you like my picks and everything like that, make sure you follow me on social media at Matty4_Matera. On my Instagram, it's just Matty_Matera. Follow PewterReport.com at PewterReport. And thank you, everybody, for watching this video. I appreciate you all. So let's go out there and win some money. Out.